What would be your most, if you can remember and go through them all, what was a really difficult, your most difficult situation that you had to get in there and give them some answers to make it work for them?
Um, probably the most difficulty I have with clients that I can think of right now. Perhaps I'll think of something else. But it's not a type of client. I mean, it's not a PTSD client. It's not marriage counseling. Though maybe I should take that back. As I
Do you get heated ones with marriage where they're just back and forth and they're just clobbering?
It is outrageous. I wish I had film of that. I've had, it is just outrageous. That's why typically I say I only do marriage counseling at 7 o'clock at night and on weekends when no one else is in the building, because it can really get loud. I've had some that is just unbelievable, totally unbelievable.
Have you had any that were physical?
No,
Okay.
no one was doing that. No one was
Just
doing
words.
anything like that. Oh yeah, but the tempers and the heated and the yelling and the screaming,
Wow.
my goodness. It's
Wow.
that's why I said only at 7 o'clock at night or on the weekends when no one else is in the building, because not all of them are that way, but some of them certainly are. They are out of control.
And what do you do?
Well,
as a doctor, what do you do when you're sitting behind
I try
the
to
desk?
out-scream them.
And do you win?
Sometimes. But some of them, no, they're just totally out of control. And who's been, of all my cases, and I can think of probably 6 to 8 of those type of cases where it went that far out over the top. Who is the bad person in every one of those cases?
Tell me.
Him. The male,
Yeah.
the husband.
Yeah.
Oh, just totally outrageous. Totally outrageous.
Yeah.
She's typically okay.
But frustrated. No
Yeah,
doubt.
because this thing isn't going anywhere, and so she wants to, they both agree to come to marriage counseling. They've probably been to other marriage counseling too, and either been kicked out or quit or something like that.
But both agree. What if you get somebody in your office that's one or the other, the male, the female, the wife, the husband, is on opposite sides, and they say, not going to listen?
Yeah, we've certainly had that. Oh yeah, it takes quite. But those, and of course that's what happens in marriage counseling. That's why they're coming in, is because they're on such different sides of the issue, and so therefore, yeah, but typically there is. It's all because of lack of communication. They are not understanding what each of them is saying. She's saying this and this and this, and he listens to what she is saying, but he's not understanding what she is trying to say. He says this and this and this. She listens to that and takes it at face value. She's not listening what he's trying to say. And so that's where I come in, because I can listen to what she says, I can listen to what he says, and I can see that these folks are not on the same page at all, because she is not understanding what he's trying to say, he's not understanding what she's trying. And when you finally sort that out and say, aren't you trying to say this, aren't you trying to say that, and they agree to it, now we got something to work with.
Okay.
So it's just, they have failed communications. They have failed. He's thinking this about her, she's thinking that, and they're both wrong.
And so you, as a psychologist, can sit there, you can hear it, and you can decipher it,
Mm-hmm.
and just listen,
Mm-hmm.
and then when they're done going back and forth, you can say, did you hear what she said? Did you hear what he said? And you can take those words and you can instruct them, like, listen to what the other person's saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have to explain to him what she's trying to say, and she agrees. And I have to explain to her what he's trying to say, and he's sitting there listening, and he agrees. And that is not what came out of their mouth.
Wow, that's amazing. It's that when they come in here, and you're behind the desk, and they hear somebody that's not emotional in it, but just listening, and you can say, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Listen to her, listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, whoa, yeah,
Absolutely.
I hear him now, I
Absolutely.
hear
Yeah.
her now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the big thing right there. They're trying to get to the same point, but they're saying it in such a different way that the other one is not getting it at all, and so they're fighting.
Because we are made up male-female, and we think differently.
I know, as I say to people all the time, men get mad at their wives and their girlfriends because she is not acting and thinking like a man. But I tell them she's not going to think and act like a man. She's a woman.
She's not a man.
And women think and act differently. And you got to get that. You know, he's expecting her to be just like one of his pals at the having a few drinks at the bar, playing pool, something like that, whatever. And no, she's not. Mm-hmm. She's not. And he doesn't get that. He gets along fine with all his pals, all his friends, and I understand it. That's fine. And she gets along fine with all of hers. But he cannot relate to her, and she cannot relate to him. They got to see each other as different people. Right. Male and female are different, folks. They don't just look differently; they think and act differently.
They do, I believe. You tell me, you're the doctor, but I think that they need somebody that's not emotional in it.
Oh, I agree.
So that you're listening, but you're not into their life. You're just listening and saying, "Have you ever thought about this?
Mm-hmm.
What about you doing this?"
Mm-hmm.
And so you can guide them in a way because you're not part of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
You're part of the answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why they come in. They want an answer.
That's why they come in, because they can't talk to their brother about this. They can't talk to their mother about this. You know, she's going to be biased or something. She doesn't know how to get what it is that they're saying. All this. So they probably complain to other people in their life about the other one. I'm sure of that.
Girlfriend to girlfriend, guy to guy.
Yeah, guy to guy complain about her, girlfriend to girlfriend complain about him. So I'm sure they did that. And
right.
all of them probably said something, you know, you ought to this, you ought to that, or too bad, or something.
Or they sided with the person.
Yeah.
Saying, you know what, dump him.
But in all of that, they did not get their answers.
No.
They didn't, and so the balance. But they come into counseling because they want the marriage to continue. People have a lot of love to give, and they want to give it to someone, and so they want to be able to love their wife. They want to be able to love their husband, but something is not working out, and so they need someone in there to sort that out for them, get them on the right path.
So they do come in because they know that they don't want it to end where it is.
They don't want it to end. You know, maybe they've already I'm sure, you know, typically people in their 30s and 40s and stuff like that have had several relationships before. Maybe several marriages before, but they certainly had boyfriend, girlfriend before, most likely, you know, high school and after and so on and so forth. And those relationships obviously didn't work out, and they don't, you know, at this stage of the game, they certainly don't want to have to start all over again. As I say, when people get divorced, it could easily be 10 years before you're happy again.
10 years?
Easily, because once you break up, it's who knows how long it's going to be before you find someone new. And you start hanging around with that person for X length of time, and then find out that didn't work.
Yeah, and then in the beginning, they found somebody new that said they probably thought, wow, this is good. And then several months down
later,
the line,
it turned out bad.
It's like, what was I thinking?
Sure. And then, so that relationship breaks up, and then maybe a year or two later, you bump into someone else, and everything is good for a year or two, like you say. They might even get married, and a year or two later they're getting divorced. So were they happy? No. So it could easily take 10 years before you finally find someone else again that you did date, got along fine, got married, and it worked. So it could easily. So people don't want to do that. They don't want to do it. It's a tremendous loss of time, money, and heartache.
So as a doctor, that people come in to get answers, where they come in and they've already lived this much of their life together going bad, and so you've got what, an hour and a half to spend with them, maybe a couple times a week, and how about on average, about how long does it take for them, after they've listened to some real solid answers, how long does it take them to say, you know what, I think we got it? But they still, I believe, you tell me, is that they still have to come back on regular sessions to keep that going.
Well, you're not wrong about that. They certainly should come back for little tune-ups, as they may call it,
Tune-ups,
for
that's
some
good.
sort of time. However, the record is pretty poor on that. Typically, there's so many people when
The
they
tune-ups are poor?
no, the tune-ups are a good idea, but they're them coming back
Oh,
every
okay.
3,
All
4
right.
months or something like that is not good.
They're going to drop out.
Yeah, typically they're going to drop out. They think they got it, and so they don't come back because they think they got it. They think they got it, so there's no sense going back. They
Right.
think they learned it all in one time, or 2 times, or 3 times, or 4 times, and so they think that. But they're, they should keep coming back and talking about that. But a lot of times they do not, or they reverted back to previous behaviors because of the heat of the moment. They may have come in and says, "Wow, that makes sense. That makes sense. We can do that. We can do that." And then something happens. I don't know what happens at home, and they start the battling again, and they revert right back to previous behaviors again because they are so well learned and so well embedded inside them, and the heat of the moment of the conflict causes them to go back to previous behaviors, and then they give up and say this marriage just isn't going to work, and there's no sense going back to the psychologist, because the counselor, because all we do is battle anyway, so why even bother going back?
That's really sad, because then they're giving up on something that really could work. I mean, they fell in love in the beginning. They had something to say, let's do this.
But marriages turn out that way. They start the honeymoon period, whatever that is, 3 months, 6 months, a year, something like that. Everything is fine and dandy. But before too long, it reverts into, how come you always, why don't you ever? And here's the battle. How come you always this? Why don't you ever this? And so that's what
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
See, so people gotta understand that it takes a long time to get used to the other person. Male and female again are not the same type of person. They're different
They
type of
think
people, and so
differently.
we really have to change our way of thinking and behaviors and stuff like that to finally get along good with the other person. So
Because it is a mindset, female, male, that we have, and we stick to that, and we don't even listen or hear what. It's not listening; it's hearing what they're saying.
Yeah, I know. Just so many of the marriage problems can be resolved. Who's going to be strong enough, as I like to say, to go along with what the other person is asking? But typically they're not strong enough, and they want to stand their ground and show their strength that way, which I think is a weakness. They ought to be able to say, okay, dear, that's fine, we can do that, not a problem.
So, this just came to me. What do you do with somebody a couple that comes in, and either the male or the female just shuts up, doesn't say anything, and the other person, male, female, does all the talking, and
Well,
so they never get to where they understand the other person, because there's sometimes one person that just wants to clam up and not say anything because they're afraid they might offend, or whatever the reason.
Well, I can spot that, and so I let the person say a bunch, but then I'll always try to stop it and say, okay, so what do you think about that? To the other person.
That's good.
Yeah, this. So what do you think about that? He said this and this, or she said this and this. What do you say about that? Is he correct? Is he right? And get their input on it.
So
And the
you
other
bring it
person
out
may,
of them.
yeah, and the other person may try to butt back in again and says, wait a minute, well, let me hear what she's got to say.
Okay.
So yes. So you got to direct that thing. Sure.
So your position is to listen to both sides and say,
I
wait a
wanna hear
minute, they're
both sides.
talking.
Yeah.
The one's talking more and more, and the other one's like this, and so to open up the one, I think usually female, you tell me, but it seems like sometimes when the female is shut up, they're just like this, and they are not going to say much of anything. Is that
I know.
true?
Well, that's very true too, because if they still probably live together, and they know more than that what they've told me, and they know if they say too much of the wrong thing, that when they get home, sparks are going to be flying. So therefore, they probably rein it in a little bit there.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
So they're
your
careful what they say.
So your position is always to really be a listener, but also to give them direction and listen to the other person, instead of just thinking their own way. There's another way to look at it.
Oh yeah, there's more than one way to look at all the problems and stuff like that.
So
yeah.
it's never he's all bad, she's all bad.
Hmm.
It's usually they're not hearing what the other person's saying. Is that right?
That's the majority, but there certainly are those cases where he is all bad or she is all bad.
Really?
Oh, there certainly is.
Really?
There certainly is.
And then you've seen battles?
Oh, well, again, what do you mean by battle? I mean, no
Well,
one's
in
throwing
your
punches.
office.
No one's throwing punches or
No,
anything. No,
not that, but like sparks.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah, plenty.
I would
plenty,
imagine.
Plenty. Not
I mean,
all
what-
the time, but there's plenty of time, sure.
Yeah. Because when they come in at that point, they really want answers, don't they?
At least
They
one of them
wouldn't come
does.
in.
I mean, the more contested it is, probably one wants more answers than the other one. But because some people are doing things that are not at all good for the marriage. Who don't know that? They know that. Their spouse knows that, but they're insisting on doing it anyway.
Right.
So so you're going to have plenty of trouble with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marriage counseling is interesting work. It's great work, but it's difficult work too. The success on it, from what I understand, the success rate on marriage counseling is pretty darn good. It's not 100%. I don't think it'll ever be 100%. Nothing will be 100%. But it's actually pretty good. If I'm not mistaken, I think one of the last statistics that I saw on it was that 80% of people who go to marriage counseling found it was successful and saved their marriage.
And so you as a doctor, you listen to all of this all day long, one client after another, after another, after another, not
Mm-hmm.
much break in that. Do you sometimes get not overwhelmed, I don't like that word, but do you at times just say, here we go again, or I don't know, how do you process everything that you hear day in and day out?
Well, it's a lot of work, and I'm here a long time, and I see a lot of clients. There's no doubt about that, and it's tiring in that regard, as far as mentally and physically tiring. But as far as running into anything that I can't handle, no, I haven't had any trouble with that.
It seems like you would have more ups than.
Oh, well, that's why that's why I like being a psychologist, because, as I say, psychologists actually heal people. Not everyone, no, but they got a pretty decent success rate. They had a lot of good results and stuff like that. So and so many of these problems, you have to learn something new. You have to learn something new, and that's because someone's teaching you. As I say, medications may be fine to a certain degree, but they don't teach you anything. So, that's the problem with the medications, is you never learn anything from medications.
So you have your degree, but you're a teacher as well.
You have to be. You have to teach people a new way of thinking, new way of
Yeah.
acting, new way of believing, yes.
So you have to be a good listener.
Oh, you have to be a good listener, and you have to be able to understand what the person is saying, what their problem is, and so many of the problems are, pretty much the same as the next one, the next one, and the next one. Marriage counseling, it's always the conflict, the PTSD people, they have all of their troubles and stuff like that, the people in depression, so on and so forth. But you learn a lot from the clients. You learn a lot from the clients. In all the clients that you see, in all the different scenarios that you run into, and all the different problems and the way that it's expressed and communicated and stuff, you learn a lot of stuff there. So you constantly get better and better and better, which is what you want to do. The greatest piano player, like I always say, what does he do on his day off? Practice piano. Why? Because as good as he is, he knows he can be better, and he wants it, and so he's driving forward for it. And it's the same way with counseling too. I do believe so many people could be healed of whatever their problem is if they would stick to it and really try to learn, instead of putting up defenses and walls and trying to argue their point. That really slows things down quite a bit. The more stubborn they are in their thinking, is the more difficult it is to finally get them to come around.
Right. But if they keep coming back, it seems like if they keep coming back, they really want the answer.
They want more answers.
Right.
They want more answers.
Right. And so that's the key, probably. It's not a one-shot deal. It can't be.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to give them, if you have years of breakdown and you come in for a session, a 1-hour session, you're not going to get answers to all this breakdown.
How many golf lessons would you have to take to be as good as Tiger Woods?
Me or anybody?
Anybody. So, so,
Exactly.
I mean, he practices constantly, been practicing forever, and he's pretty good at it now.
Yeah, and so that is the key, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
not.
Marriage is a practice. Counseling is a practice, but marriage is a practice.
It is.
You keep trying to get better and better and better. It
Yeah.
teaches you, you know.
If my thought is that in a marriage, if each person would be a listener instead of a complainer, or let me teach you something. I think that's the women's way of thinking. Let me teach you something.
I think, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
But I think if they become listeners,
Well,
and hearing them.
They have to be listeners, but they have to think too. They can't just react. They have to do a better job of communicating to their spouse what they are trying to say, and the other spouse has to do a better job of trying to understand what the person is saying, not just go on what they said, but why did they say it?
Yeah.
Something like he comes home from work and he always throws his shoes on the floor. Okay, I mean, we've all heard this many times. And she starts griping at him for throwing his shoes on the floor. Well, he looks at it as, it's just my shoes, what's the big deal? But he's not looking at the fact that she wants a nice, clean, orderly house.
Right.
So doesn't he have a heart for her on that? That he understands what she's really complaining about is that she wants a nice, neat, orderly house. So can't you help out on that? Yeah, you did a good job. You went to work all day. You paid all the bills. Thank you very much. But can't you do this too? And so if he ever has a heart for her, he would say, well, my wife wants this. I can do that. I can help her out,
Right.
make her feel all. So I'll put my shoes over here all the time, and everything will be fine.
Right.
See,
Because it's only really just a couple more seconds for him to put them there.
But the point is, he's not even thinking of her desires. See, he's only looking at her griping at him about the
Right.
shoes. It's the same thing as throwing your towels on the floor after the shower or something like that. That's pretty inconsiderate, And we have to think that, well, it's just a towel, what the heck? No, it's not just a towel. It's that you're hurting the other person because they want everything nice and nice and nice. Can't we go along with that?
Right.
So it's stuff like that. It's stuff
Right.
like that. See?
And that it seems like to me that's why they come in to see you in the first place. They just want answers.
But see, they want
to be heard too.
They want to be heard, but he needs to, for instance, if he's the culprit here, he needs to be explained this because he probably didn't think it. Your wife just wants to have a nice, neat, orderly house. She wants to be proud of it. She wants you to be proud of it, and she needs you to do this. And he may come back very well and say, wow, I never thought of it like that before. She didn't communicate it well enough to him. He didn't understand
listen.
what she was saying.
Right.
So it's something does that come up? Yeah. That's the only thing that comes up? No, but I mean, that's an example of what comes up.
And
so someone has to understand what she's trying to say and explain it to him so that he can understand it, because she wasn't able to,
Right.
because of the different communications.
So it's not what they say, it's how they say it sometimes.
It's what they're trying to say.
What they're trying to say.
It's not what they say, it's what they're trying to say.